Joining us now is Senator Mike Rounds, as there's going to be a big discussion here, and there's already one here in Washington, about what to do with aid and how to go about it. The senator is a Republican from South Dakota, joins us live here on the Hill. Thanks for being with us once again. Always appreciate it, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. So your colleague in the other chamber, the Speaker, Mike Johnson, said this earlier today, quote, "It appears to us that state and local leaders were derelict in their duty in many respects. So that is something, speaking about aid, that should be factored in. I think there should probably be conditions on that aid." Senator, do you believe that when it comes time to dealing with helping California and helping them with the funds that they need, that aid or that conditions should be attached to that aid?
I think with regard to the individuals that need the assistance, they will receive the assistance. I think there's two other items that have to be factored in. Number one is we'll have to increase our debt limit in order to borrow the money that will be used to help take care of these individuals. That part hasn't been discussed, at least not a lot, but I think that'll be part of the discussion as well.
So
the
you're
second
going to, so
piece
you
on
think
this is that we always
you think Republican, you think this is moving in the direction, and I want to hear the second one, but moving in the direction of aid could be tied to increasing the debt limit?
I think it will have to be, because we simply can't provide the assistance unless we have the ability to borrow the money to do so. And we've already reached the debt limit number. And so at this point, they're on using extraordinary means in order to continue to pay the bills. So part of the discussion that we will end up having is if we have to put in perhaps as much as $100 billion or somewhere in that neighborhood, we'll have to have a way to do that, and the debt limit would have to be increased in order to do that. Now, that's my opinion,
okay,
but I think that's a part of the discussion that will have to occur. The second piece on it is I think a number of individuals have indicated a frustration with some of the policies that California has continued to have with regard to their approach to fighting these fires in the past. CAL FIRE has been a well-respected organization throughout the United States, but the individuals that have been making public policy there have in some cases not been as effective in terms of taking care of mitigating some of the fire concerns up front. Part of it is you've got to be able to clean up underbrush. You've got to be able to clean up the forests, okay, where a number of these fires have started in the past. Along with that, you've got to be able to talk about having adequate supplies of water. And I recognize that this is one of those cases where, you know, when you get that many homes on fire, the normal pipes that you'll have running in may very well not be able to do it. But you've got to be able to have other plans available.
I hear you sort of outline, again, how this could work. But, Senator, when you voted for the government funding bill in December, you called it, quote, "far from perfect," but it delivered several key wins for America. One of them was funding for North Carolina and many states in the Southeast. Back in February of 2020, you introduced, before COVID changed everything, you introduced the HELP Act, in which you said South Dakotans know all too well the damage that can be done by Mother Nature. When storms strike, communities work to rebuild as quickly as possible. State and local government shouldn't have to wait on the federal bureaucracy to start simple construction projects. It's by way of saying, Senator, in the past on helping out with aid in hard-hit areas, including in your state, I don't believe conditions have been attached. And now I wonder why you think they should.
No, in this particular case, what I'm saying is that in order to send the money back, we have to be able to borrow the money in the first place.
But you weren't worried about borrowing back then.
Right now, we're in the middle of that discussion. Because at that time, we had the ability to increase our debt. We had already done that. We have right now, until the first part of January, we had in place that we could borrow money up until basically the first part of January. When that expired, which it has now expired, we are now to the point where the Secretary of the Treasury has already advised us that we are using extraordinary means in order to pay our bills until such time as we increase the debt limit again. It's not meant as a penalty, or it's not meant to slow down the delivery. It simply means that we'll have to expedite the discussion about the debt ceiling.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is this is the time in which it needs to be done, not as a threat, but simply stating a fact. In order to provide additional resources of that magnitude, we'll have to find a way to be able to borrow the funds to do so.
Thank you for watching, and make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.